Hey, what's going on, guys? So for today's video, I decided to revisit the film Prometheus. With all the attention that Alien Covenant has been getting online, I decided to go rewatch the film and see if anything stuck out on a symbolic or esoteric level that I hadn't noticed before. And actually, when viewing the film from a symbolic or esoteric perspective, a lot of the plot holes and inconsistencies and flaws in character logic in the film actually make a lot more sense when you understand that Ridley Scott was clearly trying to focus on the esoteric and symbolic aspects of the film, which in my view is why there seems to be a lack of common sense throughout the film, because when you're viewing the film just literally or just on the surface level, it's not going to really make sense as to what Ridley Scott was trying to convey. But hopefully by the end of this breakdown, you'll be as content as the severed head of David being safely tucked away in the duffel bag of Shaw. So let's get started. So David was the only entity that remained awake for their entire journey to LV-223 in a way that says to me that David is the real captain of Prometheus, whether the crew knows it or not. No response logged from the messages sent to LV-223, but I believe the no response logged is meant to double as no response, no soul-like response from David when viewing this young girl playing the violin, because it demonstrates the soulless nature of the androids. But paradoxically, this scene is quickly followed by the T.E. Lawrence of Arabia match scene, where clearly David is a fan of this film, which is a very human-like attribute to have. This scene right here lays the foundations of the symbolic nature of the entire film. Also is key in understanding what Alien Covenant will be about. As you'll notice, David is residing in between two pillars. As the camera pans across the room, the two pillars converge together at the exact moment where T.E. Lawrence puts the match out with his finger, perfectly lining up with David himself. This is clearly Masonic symbolism, that David is the synthesis between two pillars. That David was the realization of Peter Weyland's Promethean dream before Peter Weyland even realized it himself. Hence the introduction of David with the all-seeing eye, or the eye of the great architect, in the trailer for Alien Covenant. The trick, William Potter, is not minding that it hurts.
Potter, not minding.
Purple can be used to signify synthesis, the synthesis between the red and the blue, the dialectical or dualistic forces, the red and the blue pill, the twin pillars. David is the purple Promethean synthesis. I've also heard some sources say that purple is associated with Saturn. You'll notice that the planet that LV-223 is around is very Saturnian looking. When Shaw is awoken by David and she's throwing up, there's clearly nothing coming out of her mouth. Kind of stupid in my opinion. Something I picked up on my recent viewing of the film is just how much numerological symbolism was used to foreshadow certain events in this film. Take for example the 23 above Fifield's head right here. According to the true master Riddler himself, Jim Carrey, 23 can symbolize 666, 2 divided by 3. Interesting thing to note is that this actor also played Solomon Lane in the new Mission Impossible. Solomon is very relevant to Masonic symbology. Notice the two pillars that the digitized Peter Weyland walks through in the beginning of his little digital conference. Ancient astronaut theorists theorize. Am I watching the History Channel right now, or what's going on here? LV-223, Leviticus 22:3, or Genesis 3:22, a very important number 322 in the occult, but check out my other videos if you want detail into that. So to confirm my speculation on the 23 above Fifield's head, we have confirmation right here when the crew first exits Prometheus and enters the engineer's terraforming spaceship. You'll notice that the Promethean cams at the top have 666 in these random pressure gauges, and we have Fifield, Holloway, and Shaw all having 666 on their Promethean cams, clearly foreshadowing future events that all three characters will have to face. Directly attaching the 666 or the beast with the genetic altering alien spawning bioweapon, the black goo. And of course, Charlie Holloway is the first to remove his helmet, foreshadowing that he will be the first to make contact with the contagion via David, via the 666 black goo. I think we can all agree that the engineer holograms when they run through David and they're running from something is probably one of the stupidest things in this film. I remember hearing somewhere before the modern image of the Baphomet, the goat-headed as above so below guy, was created, that the Baphomet was actually a severed floating head. So I think the whole head imagery that's being used so much in this film might connect into the Templars version of the Baphomet. That's just speculation though. Notice the cruciform personified beast or xenomorph on the mural of the wall, the shape-shifting mural, lining up with Charlie as he exits the bioweapon chamber, clearly foreshadowing certain coming events. So check this out right here. Shaw drops the severed head of the engineer and goes and runs for it in the coming silica storm. Charlie and Shaw get into some trouble, requiring that David rescue them. Check out what David does right here when he rescues them. I think given the things that I have already shown, that is not just the standard OK symbol randomly placed in the film.
Thank you, David.
My pleasure.
So the scene when these highly advanced scientists decide to send voltage into the head, the severed head of the engineer, is admittedly very stupid, but can be explained when understood symbolically.
Mortal after all.
In my view, it was done purely to set up the ripping off the head of David that occurs later in the film. So David checks in with the sleeping Waylon and gets the green light to go ahead and play with the black goo and experiment on the crew. So David casually grabs the beast goo and even makes direct contact with it, suggesting that he is immune to its effects, that he is biologically indestructible for the most part. Fingerprints of the Gods. Just thought I'd throw that in. I'm pretty sure that's like a book about the Nephilim or something. I haven't read it, but Fingerprints of the Gods, okay? Notice the 22 above Charlie's head just before he makes contact with the black goo. 22, the Master Builder. Number 22 is the number of the spiritual Master Builder on the material plane. Blah, blah, blah. Because its great power, the number 22 may result in astounding ascendancy or disastrous downfall that Charlie will embark on in just a bit. You'll notice that David infects Charlie's drink literally right in front of his face, very similar to how the 666s on the Promethean cams is right in front of the faces of everybody who's watching this film, but 99.9% of people probably never noticed it. So all of these engineer bodies stacked up in front of the store, were they like running from xenomorphs? If so, where are the xenomorphs? Where's the evidence of what they were running from? Or were they just having like a black goo party in front of the store? I really don't know. It doesn't make any sense. So clearly some foreshadowing with Charlie lining up with the engineer, foreshadowing his coming death. A painfully scripted discussion about Shaw's continued faith, followed by a sex scene to give birth to the octopus. And we have a direct connection yet again with the 666 and the black goo, followed by a serpentine-like animal interacting with Fifield and this idiot right here, who decides to go up and pet the serpent-like creature. You're good, dude. We'll cut the serpent worm thing right out of you when we get to the med bay back at the ship. Notice the cross on the right arm, the opposite of the left-hand path, of Charlie Holloway as he sees the worm dancing about in one of his eyes. The world record for the most subliminal 666s incorporated into a film in the history of the entire freaking world. What exactly is this saying to the viewer right here when David holds the whole world in his hands? He's got the whole world in his hands. You're not looking so hot, bro. So the black goo finally takes effect in Holloway's body, and he meets the element of fire, the Promethean element of fire in cruciform form, because Charlie is the sacrificed man, the crucified man, hence all of the cruciform symbolism attached to him. Just after Charlie passes away, the first thing that David goes for on Shaw's neck is the cross around her neck, leading directly into Shaw's birthing of the octopus, specter, hydra-like creature. Remember the 666 hand symbol that David gave when rescuing Charlie and Shaw? Remember the skull on the mountains just before the silica storm started? The nonsensical nature of this portion of the film makes much more sense when understood that clearly this was put in the film to incorporate symbolic elements. The ridiculous positioning of Fifield in front of the ship hints at the almost disastrous decision that Ridley Scott made, but luckily he cut this deleted scene out of the original Alien film with the alien crab walking. Not really sure how Fifield just stood up because his knees were just over his shoulders, but anyways, I'll ignore that. And Fifield, just like Holloway, meets the Promethean fire. Hey guys, I just cut an octopus out of my stomach and I stapled my stomach shut, but I won't mention that to you guys because that's not really relevant. I'm okay now. Vickers, I am your father. Brutal, brutal, brutal writing right here. Brutal. Why, oh why, did the engineer rip off David's head and then kill the humans like a primitive animal? Not the behavior you'd expect from a technologically godlike race. Well, simply to connect the severed head of the other engineer to David very clearly. Wayland was a dummy. He didn't realize that he already achieved his Promethean goal. David is what he was seeking all along. Hence why he gets knocked out with the head of David by the engineer, because he's knocking him on the head. He's like, this is what you're looking for right here. It's David, dummy. That's how I interpret the scene.
Mortal after all.
Again, this is how a symbolic interpretation makes much more sense than a literal surface level interpretation. The Promethean elemental fire light show, the ship of man's creator gods crashing with the ship called Prometheus, who stole fire and gave it to David. The engineer reaching his arm through the door like a haunted house gag is pretty dumb if you ask me. Notice the two-faced look, the perfect scorch face, the divide on the body of the engineer, bringing in the dualistic aesthetics, which he received from man rebelling against him and taking on the role of Prometheus in the ship called Prometheus. The personified demiurge god character is swallowed up by the 666 tentacles of the Hydra, symbolizing the conquering of God. And the only survivor is David and Shaw, but she's destined to be doomed anyway. So really the only survivor in the end of this is David. Hence his contentment for being safely tucked away in Shaw's pitch black dark duffel bag, zipped away, safe and sound. A little head of David. David is the new engineer, as we will see in the coming film Alien Covenant. And then just to drive us Alien fans completely crazy, Ridley Scott gives us a xenomorph, sort of, but not really. Not really sure what the hell this thing was supposed to be, but we want xenomorphs, not this. So despite understanding the symbolic and occult nature of the film, the plot holes and serious lack of character logic still drives me completely insane whenever I watch this film. So thank you for watching. Please like, share, subscribe, comment below, and bye.